Hey guys, today's guest is Declan Lestat. Am I pronouncing that right?
Declan.
Declan Lestat.
Yeah.
I like that, Lestat. So we've never met in real life, and I became aware of his energy, his attention to detail, his musical knowledge, and the kind of vibe that made me totally enjoy writing back to him on YouTube. He was also acting like what I like to call a professional human being, which is one of my total pet peeves for everything that has to do with people, period. You know, are you acting professional from the smallest interval of communication? This has always been important to me, even when I was a kid. So it was very enlightening and not surprising when I saw that Declan was an internationally recognized career coach, a hypnotist, had also played guitar in punk and metal bands, as well as having 6 black belts under his belt, no pun intended, to mention just a few things that he does. So, dear people, this is going to be really a fucking awesome conversation and learning experience. Strap yourselves in and let me introduce you to my kindred energy friend, Declan Lestat. So good to finally meet you, my friend.
Thank you very much. I don't know where to go from that. Cheers. Nice one.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Really good to finally meet you. I just want to take a moment to appreciate you. I first encountered your work maybe about 17, 18 years ago, before I left England. It popped up on my radar at a particularly rocky point in my life, particularly a low point in my life. And the content you were doing at that time, I was actually attracted to your YouTube thumbnail because you were showing your Green Lantern ring up to the camera like that. I was like, okay, this guy's gonna have something I want to hear. And I was right, you know, it spoke to me. I binged all your content at that point, and there was a few things that kind of kept my head above water, psychologically speaking, at that point. And you were on that list for sure. So I want to appreciate you for that. I'm sure there's plenty who would join me. And I want to thank you personally as well. I would not be here today. I don't think I'd actually be here sitting in front of you geographically in the world if it wasn't for those lessons you were sharing then. So thank you, brother. Great to finally meet you.
Wow, man. So fucking amazing. You know, those days of YouTube were truly important, as YouTube was very different back then.
Yeah.
It was like a blossoming brand new community where, you know, for the first time you were able to reach out to complete strangers and and communicate with them. And this whole Green Lantern thing that you're telling me, honestly speaking, that thumbnail and that experience is what brought me to wanting to keep reaching out and following what I believe you and I actually have in common when it comes to wanting to help people organize their thoughts of positivity through discipline and learning just how much fun it is to actually be serious. You see, not everybody, you know, a lot of people attribute, you're too serious. No. You're not having fun. You could be having fun. Oh my God. You have no idea what you're fucking missing when you're hanging out with serious people.
Yeah,
you know?
No, totally. Yeah.
But honestly speaking, that ring thing, that story was, I lost that ring. And my partner and I started fighting because we had matching rings, and that it was a kind of a bonding factor. About 4 or 5 days went by. I said, let me go look for that ring. And honestly speaking, I was living in Toronto, and it could have been anywhere in the entire city.
Yeah, totally.
Some crazy thing virtually said, let me close my eyes and follow myself and see what's going to happen. I walked down a road I never went down. And honestly speaking, part of me was saying, there's no way this is going to fucking work, but I followed through anyways. And just as I'm about to give up, on my father's grave, dude, there is the sun that goes clink on something that is the size of a micro pebble. And something made me pull my keys out and try and dig into the tar, which I would never do under any freaking circumstance, right?
Yeah, totally.
And there was the ring. That changed my life.
Hell yeah.
Brought me together with you and actually set me on motion. You know, we got connected because of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And because it's maybe a few months ago, I was like, I wonder what's happened to Ask Momo and the Momo Zone, because I hadn't checked out your content in a while. I went and found that video again. I watched through it again. And then maybe a day or so later, boom, a new short. And that's when I messaged you. I was like, you're back, finally, So that video has like multiple impacts, And so correct as well about serious people. I'll point it out now, in fact, just in case you need to keep me on track. I'm dealing with ADHD, recently diagnosed. So that's brought a whole new perspective onto things, but I tend to ramble a bit if I'm not careful. So give me a polite cough if I ramble. But one of the products of our ADHD of my ADHD at least, is I have like a phobia almost of small talk and, meaningless chatter. And I'm okay with it. I'm not going to be rude, but I would much rather sit with serious people, with interesting people who take their conversation, for me at least, a higher level, not speaking for anyone else, And you're right.
Yeah. I completely agree with you.
Yeah. My life is so much richer because of it,
Look, there is nothing else like self-education.
Yeah.
To me, is such a magic thing. Critical thinking is part of self-education, and they do not teach you this in school. I've always felt that when you connect with the right people, regardless, this is what happens. Like I've been around a couple of people that have had Alzheimer's, for instance, recently. And for some reason, I'm able to like make them communicate and lock them into like almost regular kind of conversation.
Nice.
But that is because of what we are talking about right here, right now. What you consider to be, it's funny you say ADHD. It's always fascinated me that when somebody goes ahead, a doctor basically says, well, you have this. And then I look at a guy like you and I think about it. And I say, how is that possible? And what does that mean? In the sense that, is it just because he's maybe hanging out with the wrong people? Maybe he's seen too much of one thing and he's hit a peak. And that basically means he's not interested anymore, but he's trying to stay polite, like you said. And it's like almost having a quiet nervous breakdown because you're looking for something else, but you're trying to stay cool around your friends, the people, your job. It's the job too. Like when you have a particular job and you know that that's what you make a living for, and you've been doing that for so long, an X amount of your time, the thought of shifting out of that thing into an elevated version of the next version of what it is you're looking to do using those skill sets as the basis is also something that can trigger somebody into like, whoa, like, what am I doing? Who am I? What's happening?
Yeah,
here?
totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally. I've either sought out those experiences over the years, or they found me. Much like finding you on YouTube. Or I remember I got an introduction to Buddhism, this little thin book from a local bookshop when I was living in Nottingham in the UK, and I was sitting in a cafe reading it, and this guy at the table next to me was like, "Why are you interested in Buddhism?" It's always appealed to me. I'm into Eastern cultures. I study martial arts, and we got into it a little bit. And next thing you know, we talk about Catholicism. And he's telling me how at the higher levels, because I was raised Catholic, I come from an Irish Catholic household. The higher levels, they get very similar. Buddhism and Catholicism, get real close together. And next thing you know it, we're in this deep conversation. I'm actually going to a Buddhist temple and checking that out, and as a result. And I'm not sure if he was there or his objective was to turn me off of Buddhism or, maybe make me think twice or whatever. But he definitely got me thinking much deeper about Buddhism. And that's what led me to a temple. That's what led me to living in a Buddhist temple for a couple of years and, meeting some real interesting people that way. It's funny with like the connections that we have through social media, you think this would be easier and it's not. If anything, it tends to create a bit more of a barrier, I think. Everything's much more superficial.
Buddhism is like a very peaceful Zen kind of, let's not put too much emotional content or value on things that don't give you, energy, strength, and good for others. I mean, I would imagine that that's got to be part of it. And I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about being 3D, becoming 4D, and what 5D means when you become 5-dimensional, where you virtually everything is man. You know what I mean? In a really cool kind of a way where emotional content doesn't drive your decisions, doesn't mess with your personal temperature, doesn't raise your heartbeat, You know what I mean? Judging does not exist.
Yeah.
3D is all the emotions being able to swing back and forth. And a lot of people, you know, in the beginning, like with martial arts and even with music, when you start, you're not three-dimensional yet because you haven't understood how to jam or how to go telepathic, which you have to be minimum 3D to be able to be kind of telepathic, like when you say jam with people and you finally get it.
Yeah.
And when you're two-dimensional, you just really don't see things because you don't have the experience and you let your emotional content dictate your lack of experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now that is some fucked up shit until you finally get it. And it's taken me until I'm over 60 to actually get into this 5-dimensional thing where it's like, you know what? I understand there are problems. There is stuff all around the world going on. The only thing I can do is send positive energy, prayers to everybody and everything, and live my life the best I can while serving the people that come into my life and doing what it is you have to do. Because there is nothing else when you think that everything matters, because it doesn't. You can't take everything into your hole with you at the end, right?
No, exactly. Exactly. I think what you were talking about there, it's about being in charge of your own reality, really, you know, not being buffeted around by externals, you know. I was told once it's like your unconscious mind is like a little puppy and your thoughts and your emotions are the traffic and they're zipping past, you know, and your mind, this little puppy or whatever, is like trying to catch all the, you know, and you have to kind of like gently, but with authority, you have to kind of bring it in, show you kind of how to behave. And then you can observe these thoughts, observe the stimuli and these emotions and these reactions, but you don't have to chase them, you know. You can acknowledge them, you know, they're there. You're not like a block of wood, you know, things are going to happen. You don't have to chase everything that flits across your mind, you know. I'm mixing metaphors there entirely. I do apologize. But when I heard that really rung bells with me totally.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You're right, you know, because, and the trick is also remembering your lessons learned. When you remember, is it left? Is it right? Is it forward? Is it backwards? Did I like it? Did I not like it? Did this make me feel good? Did this not make me feel good? Each time these micro situations happen, you have an opportunity to add that to your personal bank and basically say, okay, this is a solid stepping block for me to move forward. Because the interesting thing is when you're a puppy, you want everything because you just don't know. It's like when you're a kid. I need this. I want this. I want that. Then you become a teenager and you basically go, if only I had this and only I had that, then I'd be able to do this and that.
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
And when you get older, if you're lucky, the opposite happens, which is you know everything that you don't want first so that you're left only with what you need. And that, my friend, again, is reverse psychology. You understand? But I think it takes something. That's got to be part of Buddhism too, I figure, in some kind of sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Everything is temporary, you know, even the buildings around us, you know, the roads that we walk on, everything down to, you know, us as individuals and the things that we own, everything is temporary. It's that old phrase that what you own ends up owning you, you know. Again, it's that appreciation for what you've got, that appreciation for, you know, what you've earned and what you have, but you can't cling to it, you know. That can only lead to misery. And you see this with so many like hugely successful people and still not happy. I've talked to Buddhist monks who have the robes on their back and a book, and that's it. And they're the happiest people I've ever met.
What you're saying about clinging, I think that manifestation of stuff that one would want would be hampered and not happening because you're clinging to stuff, right? So I always believe that if you want something to happen, you think about it and then you launch it into the universe and you fucking forget about it and you move on to something else. A lot of people, they just overthink shit, right? And it's like writing. I learned a lot of this stuff in music, like you must have learned it in music and in martial arts and whatnot, right? At some points, you got to be precise. It's 1, 2, 3, go, done. Follow through, the move goes through. The note goes through. I always tell people, you think you sound like shit? Guess what? You probably do. Unless you're a completely insecure person that thinks everything you do is shit, then that's another subject. But if you're not, and you think you sound like shit, you have an opportunity at every bar, right, to make yourself better than the bar before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that works with everything in fucking life, dude.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah. And I think how that ties in with the manifestation and everything, if you're grasping to it, if the things you want are kind of like you're pinning your whole identity on it, or you want it because you're comparing yourself, you're comparing your talents, your belongings to these carefully curated lives that you see on TV or on the internet, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. And when I gave that all up, when I realized, and this is not to say you don't have ambition or anything, but you have your ambition. You're not trying to live someone else's ambition. When I got all that, when I lived all that, literally, and within about 2 weeks of watching your video again, met my wife, and here's a guy who's not, I'm not built for relationships. And I'd come to terms with that, and then without even looking for her, without even, just kind of bumped into her, basically, boom, met my wife. We're married within about 2 weeks, and that was 17 years ago, 16 years ago.
God.
Yeah. It's
so cool, dude.
It's
because you just let go and you accept, right? And it's so hard, because when somebody's going through turmoil and then one gives someone advice, it's like, if you can't pay your rent and you tell the person, yeah, but you need to go ahead and you need to work on something else, and then you'll be able to get it. But yeah, but I need the money, right?
Yeah.
Honestly speaking, my biggest phobia is not to pay a bill on time, which I always do, no matter what. But the other thing is that I'm also the guy that put in the extra hours, that would work 24 hours a day, not sleep for 3 or 4 days, learning stuff that I didn't know how to do at all while I was in debt or in need. And then what happened, just because I did that, the fucking phone rings, or I bump into somebody on a street corner or something. Somebody just calls me and it's like, can you do that? And I just learned how to do that.
Yeah.
And when you get good at that kind of thinking and alignment, you can actually wind up getting paid as you're learning, and no one will ever know.
Yeah.
Because your standard, your personal standard of beginning, middle, and end. That's my trick.
Yeah.
Everything has a beginning, middle, and an end, and a timeline, right? So what is this? A beginning, middle, and an end of something that lasts 5 seconds, 1 second, 10 minutes, an hour, a week, a month. All these different beginning, middle, and end and possibilities give you the beginning where you latch, the idea, you latch onto it, you move into it. By the time you hit the middle, you're able to look back at the beginning and say, you know what? I got this far. I'm getting some kind of result. I can see the end over the fucking horizon over there. I'm heading towards it. You get to that end. That chunk is completed. Whether that is a brick that is added to other bricks, whether it is a friend that brings you to other friends, whether it is a gig that will bring you to all the other gigs that turn you into what it is you're going to become. It's following fucking through with what your own brain told you to do. And this is fucking key, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what you were talking about there, I think some people maybe miss this when it comes to manifestation. You're taking action as well. You're acting in alignment with what it is you're trying to manifest. You're learning those skills. You're taking those opportunities. And that I think that helps bring you in alignment with what you want, So more things start to appear, more things start to come to you. That's got to be key to it as well,